Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk about org agenda and how I have my org agenda set up. And what do I mean by that? The default org agenda, when you open it up, probably looks something like this. And while this is, shows you a bunch of information and it has this, nice 1980s-ish look to it, I think that it could use some updates. So what I've done in my configuration is I've made my org agenda look like this. So we're going to go over all of the packages and options and configuration necessary to turn your org agenda from this to this. So where do we start here? Well, the first package that we can use to make this a little bit better is something called org modern. So org modern, it's up there in Melpa, so you can go and install it. And once you have it installed, all you need to use is this global org modern mode. So when we do that and we refresh here, oops, one of my other packages is already in there. What it will do is it will add these highlighted box styles around your to-do keywords and the tags for those various to-do items. And I think this just looks a lot better. It makes things pop out quite a bit more. Another thing that you probably noticed as well, another one that you sort of saw earlier, was Aletti mode. So Aletti is a package which does this centering thing, which usually makes things a little bit easier to read because it shrinks the width of what your eyes have to see, and that just makes it easier to read, especially when things are getting wrapped. And I think this has a nice look on org agenda. So in order to enable this in org agenda, you sort of have to enable it with a hook. So I'll show you what I mean. If I go to so if I go in here and oops, where is it? Let's see, Aletti. Here we go. Org agenda, here it is. So what you can do is you can define a hook. So this is my org agenda open hook. It's a function. And it's just the hook to be run when org agenda is opened. And for this, I just have it run Aletti mode. And then using the add hook function, we can add this function, org agenda open hook, as a hook for org agenda by adding it to the org agenda mode hook. So with this, every time you open org agenda, it will automatically apply Aletti mode to sort of center things. Now from here, this is where we have to start sort of delving into some of the variables that control how org agenda operates. One of the things that I did right away in my org agenda config was, if I go back up here, I easily get overwhelmed by too much information. So there are two variables here, org agenda span and org agenda start day. By default, I think these are, let's see here, org agenda span is 10, and the org agenda start day I think is -3, yep. So what that means is that it starts your agenda 3 days before the current date, and then it shows you 10 whole days. And while this might be nice for some people, I can't really handle things this way. I like to just see what is there for today and no other days, except maybe, overdue items, which will still show up. So in order to do this, I set org agenda span to 1, so it only shows 1 day, and the start date is 0, meaning it starts today. And so by doing this, you'll see it only shows today now, which I think is a lot more convenient and nice. Now you might be wondering, well, what if I want to see things in the future and in the past? Well, in that case here, let me see, which key is this again? Yep, org agenda earlier and org agenda later. So those are two functions that you can bind to keybinds. I have Doom Emacs running here, and so org agenda earlier is bound to the left bracket, so I can see previous days, and then org agenda later is bound to the right bracket character. So you can just sort of go between different days, sort of like that. So you still can see multiple days without worrying about seeing all the information all at once. Another thing that I have going on here is I set these variables, org agenda skip timestamp, skip deadline, skip scheduled, if done, and org agenda skip scheduled if deadline is shown, and skip timestamp if deadline is shown. So these variables, I think some of these are already at their default values, but what these will do is if some item is marked as done, so for example, if I finish this video and then I refresh the buffer, it will actually remove that from the entire view, which I think is also very nice because it actually removes the to-do items from the view so that it looks like you're getting things done, because when you mark something as done, you are getting things done. Another thing I sort of start to mess with here are these some of the faces that are involved with the org agenda, which of course you can mess with that, yourself to get it to look exactly the way you want it to. But another key piece of config that I like to have enabled is by messing with some of these variables, org agenda current time string. So the default value here is this whole thing here. This is the now time string. And I like to actually just sort of get rid of this. I think it has a much cleaner look to it. And then there's also the time grid variable, which if we look at this, this tells us what the actual time grid should look like. So this is, if we open up the agenda again, these are these things here, these sort of grayed out times. And I personally think that those don't necessarily need to be there, because I really think that it looks a lot cleaner without these. So what I actually do here, if you look at the variable itself, so there's actually 4 parts to it. So there's this first part which tells org agenda when to show the time grid. There's the second part that is sort of a list of the times that should be included on the time grid. And then there's this third part that these are the strings that appear on the time grid. And what I actually do is I remove all of the times and I change the time strings to be nothing. So what this does is, if we go back here, I think this gives it just a little bit of a cleaner look. So another thing you'll notice here, the tags for each to-do item are sort of overflowing to the next line, which definitely doesn't make this look very good. Of course, we could fix this by turning off Aletti mode, but I like things to be centered. So I'm just going to remove the tags. If you like to see the tags, definitely you don't need Aletti mode, but I think that the purpose of the tags are to help you organize and sort your different to-do items and visually see what's going on with all of them. But there are 2 ways of doing that better, I think. One being category icons, and another is using the org super agenda package, which, as we look on here, that's the package that'll allow us to sort all the to-do items in these completely separate groups, which I think is much better than trying to just show the tags off to the side. So to turn off these tags, what I do is I set org agenda hide tags regular expression to basically include everything. So that will hide any tag that pops up. So there you go. We no longer have tags. Another thing I'd like to do to fix some of the stuff here is mess with how some of this information is shown. So you can see just by looking at this one here that we have information about, we have the category. So these are like family stuff, and then I have teaching stuff. And then there's like a scheduled time. And then there is whether it's scheduled or deadlined or how late it is, which you'll see I have a lot of overdue stuff here. And then there's the information on the actual task itself. So I think that this can be a little bit cleaner by removing some of this scheduled, deadlined information here. So to do that, I mess with this org agenda prefix format variable. Now this is a bit weird looking here. This is the default string for an agenda view. And so we have a lot of sort of like control characters here. And if you scroll down to the documentation from describing the variable here, you can see what each thing means. I set mine to this string right here. And by doing that, I've essentially removed this %s, which is the scheduling deadline information. And I think I've done a few other things as well. Yeah, well, in any case, there's a lot of stuff going on there, and you could mess with that to your heart's content if you want, but I have mine set to this. And just to show you what that looks like there, that sort of removes the information about scheduled or deadlined or how overdue something is. Now, one thing you'll notice now is I have also removed the category name. Before, it actually showed the category name on the left-hand side here. And the reason I removed that is because I am replacing it with something even better, which is a category icon. Now, the category icon is here. It is given by this %i control character. So if you want that, you need to make sure that %i is included in your org agenda prefix format, for agenda at least. And then what you have to do is set the org agenda category icon a list. So this is going to require you to have all the icons, most likely. And so essentially what you do here is you set the a list to an a list, where the first part of it is the category. So these are all my categories for things like teaching and family and YouTube stuff. And so then the second part is the actual symbol itself. So anything with a category of teaching should have the graduation cap icon, as you can sort of see on the left-hand side here. And everything in the family category should have the, well, it's not showing up correctly there, but you'll see what I mean once I load this. Now, on the left-hand side, we have family stuff has this home symbol. The teaching stuff has this graduation cap symbol. And I have other symbols as well, like for my YouTube stuff, I have the YouTube symbol, of course, and so on and so on. Now, this is also going to require you to set categories in your org agenda files. If you have just like one big agenda file, this is really easy. All you have to do is you go to the file in question, like for example, this is our weekly to-dos, and you add property category and then the name of the category. This can also be done using org set property. So org set property, there we go. And you'd use category, and then you'd select or type out a category name. I have some other stuff sort of going on in the background here because I have all my org agenda files inside of my org Roam databases, essentially. And so what you can do if you have a lot of org agenda files is you can write a hook that will automatically categorize certain files by certain features whenever you save those files, and then add that as a hook to the after save hook. That's not necessarily in the scope of this video, but if you want to see what I've sort of done here, my configuration will of course be linked in the description down below. But in any case, once you have all of your org agenda files with the proper categories, and you have set this org agenda category icon a list variable, it will have those nice icons appear in your org agenda. Now, last thing here is we're going to set up org super agenda. And org super agenda is honestly one of my favorite packages. If I go to my figure here, org super agenda configuration, once you download the org super agenda package, you have to do a little bit of setup for it. And this involves at least setting the org super agenda groups variable. Now, to sort of show you what's going on here, this is the thing that will take all of your org agenda items and separate them out into these nice, distinct blocks, essentially. And so what you have to do is you write this org agenda groups as sort of this list of kind of like filters, you might say. And the thing to keep in mind is that org super agenda groups will run through and filter things and use these first filters first, and then it will use the last filters. So like what I have going on here is I start by selecting the overdue items because I want overdue items to necessarily be in their own category, because those are like maybe the most important things to figure out, whether I'm going to reschedule those things or if I'm going to delegate the task to someone else or something like that. It's important that the overdue items are figured out first. I don't want any overdue items accidentally being swept into another group. From there, I filter out things based on sort of a folder. So I have like personal stuff, family stuff, teaching stuff, YouTube stuff, bunch of other random stuff that, I don't often have to-do items for, but they're there anyways. And then lastly, I filter out the today items. So how I have this set up, so what ends up happening here is, so for me, there's basically two fundamental categories for org agenda items, and those are events and tasks. Events should be on some sort of time grid calendar-like view, and things that are not events are tasks. So they're there and they should show up, but I don't necessarily need them plugging up the time grid, as you might say. So what I do here is, for every single to-do item that I want to appear as an event, I tag it with event. And the only group that pulls events in is this today group. For all the other things, I have these selectors that filter based on the file path, but make sure that they're not pulling in any to-do item that is tagged as event. One more thing that's going on here is this order property. And the order property tells org agenda how to show those in order on the actual agenda view. So I have today have the order of 1, meaning it appears first. I have overdue have an order of 2, meaning it appears second. And then everything else has an order of 3, so that would be after that, which is what you see in my final org agenda view over here. There are a lot of filters and selectors that you can use for org super agenda groups. Unfortunately, looks like the documentation is not here. But if you go to the org super agenda groups GitHub page, org super agenda, they have a ton of examples. So you can see here, like this, they got a ton of examples. And they have a whole documentation on the group selectors, sort of showing you what you can use and stuff like that. You can select by category, you can select by date, deadline, effort values. I don't really use those myself. So priorities, scheduled, whether it's past, future, today, tags, all that fun stuff. So my setup will probably not work exactly the same for you, but you can modify your org super agenda groups to be whatever makes sense for you. So after setting this up here, you just got to make sure that org super agenda mode is enabled. And I'm going to turn these on now because I'm using the Vim key bindings, and those are sort of necessary for some things. This is mostly back to where we were before, minus some of the font faces. So I could go back there and show you the font faces. Where was that? There we go. I'm using Doom Emacs, so I have custom set faces, but however you set the faces of various things, I have org agenda date, date today, date weekend today, and org super agenda header. I think org super agenda header is the big one here, but I have those set up to have custom faces so that it looks just a little bit nicer, pops out just a bit more. So in any case, that was a quick walkthrough of how I set up my org agenda and make it look just a little bit better and a little more focused and I think, easier to look at. I may have glossed over quite a few of the details here, but I will definitely link my configuration in the description. I'll link org super agenda, GitHub page, documentation in the description as well, and all the other packages that I referenced here, Aletti, org modern, all that good stuff. So you can check out those packages, install them to your Emacs config, and write your org agenda as well. So anyways, thank you for watching the video, and big thanks to all of you that have supported the channel by subscribing and liking and commenting on all my videos. I really appreciate it. If you found my Emacs and NixOS and Linux FOSS content useful, please subscribe, comment, like the video. If you really like this content, I do have a join button, I guess, now on YouTube, and pretty soon I'll probably get like a Patreon and whatever, some other donation streams. I'll put those in the video descriptions once I have those all set up. So if you're really enjoying this content and you'd like to support me even further, those are available as well. If you dislike this video, please dislike the video and let me know in the comment section below why you dislike the video and what I can do better next time. But anyways, next time we'll probably do some NixOS, maybe. I don't know, or maybe we'll do some. Oh, maybe we'll do Emacs and NixOS. I don't know. I'll figure it out next time. So stay tuned for more. Subscribe, get notifications, and I'll see you next time. Have a good rest of your day. Have a happy New Year's, everyone. See you around.